Hey guys, Panamer1712 Gaming here. In today's video, I'll be talking about even more forgotten things from Fortnite over the years. If you guys haven't seen either of the two previous parts yet, you can check them out in the playlist in the description below. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. Alright, so for the first forgotten thing, we'll be talking about the quote-unquote interactive nature props, first introduced in Chapter 3 Season 1. In Chapter 3 Season 1, around Logjam Lumberyard, there were special tree props dotted between the normal tree props that, whenever broken with your pickaxe, would actually break the log off of the tree and cause it to start rolling around. You could then shoot or pickaxe this log, and it would move in whatever direction you hit it from. You could even use the log to damage other players if you ran it into them fast enough with your pickaxe. But anyways, 2 seasons later, in Chapter 3 Season 3 Vibin', they added a bolder version of the interactive nature props, where, just like the tree, you could shoot it off of the rocks it sits on, and it would start rolling around, and then you can move it by pickaxing or shooting it. Or, as shown later in the season, you could use a UFO to pick up the boulder, and then just start smashing it into everyone in the entire lobby, basically guaranteeing a victory royale. In Chapter 4, these interactive nature props stayed throughout the entire chapter. Or at least the trees did. I don't think the boulders actually stayed, unfortunately. Also in Chapter 4, they introduced another new interactive nature object, this being the giant snowball. Basically, in the snowy areas of the map, you could pickaxe the snow and it would start to form a snowball, and if you pickaxed it enough, it would grow into a massive snowball that you could hide inside of and roll into enemy players to damage them. Unfortunately, once OG and subsequently Chapter 5 dropped, all 3 of these interactive nature objects were removed, and they haven't ended up returning since. Alright, that's all for this first forgotten thing. Now let's move on to the second forgotten thing in this video.
It's got a chug. Nothing!
So, for the next forgotten thing, we will be talking about several of the very odd times where V-Bucks were just completely broken for some reason. The first incident to bring up here is the Among Us V-Bucks incident, where after people found out that if you already own the Among Us stuff in Fortnite and tried to purchase the stars in Among Us, it would grant you V-Bucks back since you already own the cosmetics. Since the cheapest Among Us stars pack was only like $1 or something like that, people were able to just purchase it over and over and over again to get tons of V-Bucks for incredibly cheap. This one was shortly patched after it was found, however, and nobody kept any of the V-Bucks that they got granted by doing this bug. The second incident we will be talking about here is actually relatively recent, and it happened with the LEGO Xeric Starter Pack bundle. Whenever people bought this bundle for about the first day or so, instead of being granted the Xeric skin and the other random LEGO pieces in this pack, people were instead granted one single V-Buck. Literally, people literally only got one single V-Buck when buying the pack. What can you even do with a single V-Buck? Anyways, after the day or so when this bug was in the game, Epic Games eventually patched it and people got granted the actual stuff from the LEGO pack. Also, people kept the single V-Buck and were granted an extra 99 V-Bucks as compensation. So, cool, I guess? Okay, those are all the random broken V-Bucks incidents I could find for this forgotten thing. Now let's move on to the next forgotten thing.
It's okay. Venom!
Alright, so for the third forgotten thing, we'll be talking about some of the old unlockable styles that were first introduced in Chapter 2 Season 7. So, in the Chapter 2 Season 7 Battle Pass, on the Chimera skin, you had a bunch of unlockable styles that you could only get if you got enough collectible alien artifacts, which were found in special artifact containers, or the other forgotten thing in this section, the cosmic chests. Basically, the cosmic chests were special chests on the map that were only available in duos, trios, and squads that, whenever interacted with, would force the player and their team to pickaxe weak points on the cosmic chest in order to actually open the chest. The chest itself contained okay loot, but the main reason that people would go for one is to get alien artifacts from it, which could then be used to unlock the Chimera skin styles. This same feature of getting a currency in order to unlock skin styles continued for the next 3 seasons, with Tunafish in Chapter 2 Season 8 having the feature, Haven from the Chapter 3 Season 1 pass having it, and the Suki 2.0 pickaxe from the Chapter 3 Season 2 pass also having the feature. This feature stopped being implemented in the battle passes around Chapter 3 Season 3, as most players were not too particularly fond of the feature, and Epic Games probably wanted to make it easier for people to get everything available within the Battle Pass in the short amount of time it was available. So, as a result of these factors, the Unlockable Styles feature was removed from the Battle Pass starting that season and hasn't returned since. Alright, that's all for this Forgotten Thing. Now let's move on to the fourth Forgotten Thing in this video.
Bye.
So, for the next Forgotten Thing, we'll be talking about some of the forgotten collabs that we've gotten in Fortnite over the years. The first collab we'll be talking about in this section is the Mistborn collab, and the only skin that came with it, the Kelsier skin. This collab was added to the game in Chapter 2 Season 6, and was only added because the Chief Creative Officer at Epic Games, Donald Mustard, loved the book and really wanted one of the characters in the game. Though I've literally never seen anyone use this skin ever, and also it literally never returns in the shop, so, like, what was the point of this whole collab? The next collab we'll be talking about in this section is the Secret Tenant collab, and it technically got two different things that no one remembers. First being the trailer reveal in Party Royale, where Jeff Keighley and John David Washington, one of the actors from the movie, were there and hosted the trailer during the event, and the second part was the hidden triangle and suitcase in Steamy Stacks that you could find by breaking a floor within one of the buildings in Steamy Stacks. The trailer reveal was obviously a one-time event, but the triangle and suitcase, if I'm not mistaken, stayed until the very end of Chapter 2, which was actually pretty cool. The suitcase also played a part of the soundtrack from the movie when you walked near it, so that's also pretty neat. The third collab actually never ended up happening and was only in the leaks, this collab being the Extraction movie collab, and more specifically, a Chris Hemsworth skin with his appearance from the movie. Only the body of the skin was ever leaked, and the official skin was never finished, and the collab never ended up releasing. The fourth and final collab we will be talking about in this section is the Quibi collab, and the two shows that were shown in Risky Reels as part of the collab, Punk'd and The Sauce. Basically, in Chapter 2 Season 2, Epic Games decided to collab with the, at the time, new streaming service Quibi to show two of the shows on their service and advertise the new streaming service. The thing is, nobody cared about Quibi. Like, literally so little people cared about it, that it full-on shut down just later the same year it was released. And so, since so few people cared about it, almost no one actually attended either of the show premieres, which is why they're so forgotten and are included in this section. In fact, when I was searching for the name of the second show that was premiered as part of the collab, that being The Sauce featuring Ayo and Teo, I only found like 3 posts actually talking about it across Twitter and YouTube combined, which just goes to show how little people remember or cared for this collab. Alright, that's all of the collabs for this section. Now let's move on to the next forgotten thing in this video.
Season X is here, and the world is destabilizing fast.
Alright, so for the next forgotten thing, we'll be talking about the least forgotten thing in this video, being the Rift Zones featured in Chapter 1, Season X. Now, the reason I said kinda for this section is because for certain Rift Zones, like Taco Time and Gotham City, I think most people generally remember them, even if it's not for the best reasons. But for some of the Rift Zones, such as the Moisty Palms Rift Zone and the Tilted Town Rift Zone, most people don't remember that they even existed, so let's go over a few of the forgotten Rift Zones from Season X. So, as mentioned before, the Moisty Palms Rift Zone was one of these forgotten Rift Zones. In this Rift Zone, which was a fusion of Paradise Palms and Moisty Mire, whenever you crouched, you would turn into a prop and would have the abilities of the Prop Hunt ability from Creative Mode. Back in Season X, I remember that this was definitely one of the more hated Rift Zones, but most people more so remember the Taco Time Rift Zone as being the worst Rift Zone of that season. So that's why no one really talks about the Moisty Palms Rift Zone anymore. The next Rift Zone is the Tilted Town Rift Zone, which is a Wild West themed version of Tilted Towers where you couldn't build or destroy any of the environment within the area. This one was actually not as hated as the other Rift Zones, but it still ended up becoming forgotten because shortly after it was added, it was replaced with the Gotham City Rift Zone, which stayed until the end of the season and was far more popular than the Tilted Town Rift Zone, so it did not end up being remembered by many people after Season X ended. The next Rift Zone is the Retail Row Rift Zone, which literally just replaced Mega Mall with Retail Row, except there were zombies for some reason? Yeah, I don't really get what was up with this Rift Zone, and I guess most other people didn't either, so it ended up becoming forgotten after Season X ended. The final Rift Zone in this part of the video is the Sports Center Rift Zone, which replaced the, as in the name of the Rift Zone, the Sports Center landmark on the map with a giant hole for some reason. The special mechanic with this place was that there were consumables scattered all over the ground in the area, kind of like the apples scattered under trees and certain mushrooms scattered in forests on the map. However, these consumables would swap between every consumable in the game, meaning that instead of just one consumable, like bananas for example, being scattered everywhere, instead it would change to a different consumable every few seconds, and you could be consuming a hop rock or shadow stone instead of a banana. This place was mainly forgotten about it, simply because it was an unnamed location on the map, and didn't draw too much attention to the location as a result, and I'm pretty sure the glitched consumables had to have the shadow stones vaulted from them temporarily because they had a bug with them, which definitely drew attention away from the area, as there was no reason to go in a hole in the map with literally zero loot and less of the glitched consumables. Alright, that's all of the Forgotten Rift Zones from Season X. Now let's move on to the honorable mentions.
Good news. We can finally be bees. This isn't your world, but we can be bees.
Alright, for the honorable mentions, we'll be going through a few random items that don't have enough info to get their own segment, and we will be going through some viewer suggestions from the previous video. So, without further ado, Dial Drops, Ring Chickens, the portal device from Zero Crisis Finale, the Xbox Chapter 5 Season 1 leak, Wild Watch Jars, Walt Mud, Surfboards and Water Balloons, Peter Griffin's unreleased Mythic Ranger pistol, the Stranger Things Upside Down Portals and Scoops Away Parlor, and last but not least, the old scrapped Wreck-It Ralph collab that may or may not actually be real, or at least the game modes and stuff that were leaked. Alright, that's all for the honorable mentions, now let's move on to the final forgotten thing in this series.
Fletcher Kane is but a barren tax on the island. This wolf is out of control. Seaport Shield Party!
And now, for the final forgotten thing in this video and series, we'll be talking about one of the coolest and probably the second least forgotten thing in this video. The Spy Games mode from Chapter 2 Season 2. Basically, in Season 2, the Spy Games mode was an LTM where you got to pick either faction, Ghost or Shadow, and play different minigames using the weapons and perk-ups from that faction. Some of the minigames included were things like Operation Infiltration, which was basically capture the flag, Operation Payload, which was basically an escort the payload type mission, and Operation Knockout, which was a team deathmatch type minigame. Every couple times you respawn in a Spy Games minigame, you got the choice between 3 different weapon and tech combos, and you could use the weapons and tech, or basically power-ups, that you chose to fight against opponents with. However, not all weapons and tech were automatically given to you during the times when you had to choose one from the random selection. To unlock more tech and weapon options, you needed to level up on the Spy Games Battle Pass, I guess, and each time you leveled up on it, you would get new tech and weapons that can be chosen from the random 3 choices. Now, as stated earlier in this section, this mode and special computer in the Battle Pass tab for it were only available for the duration of Chapter 2 Season 2, and once the season ended, the mode and everything related to it never returned again. As time's gone on, we had certain special features and minigames from the Spy Games reworked into their own special things, but as for the original mode itself, it has not returned since Chapter 2 Season 2 and will most likely never return again. Unless if OG goes to Chapter 2 after Season X, which if that happens, we may actually get a chance at the mode coming back. But anyways, that's all for the final forgotten thing. Now let's move on to the outro. Alright, so those are all the forgotten Fortnite things that I could think of for the final Fortnite Forgotten Things part. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the Fortnite Forgotten Things series. And if you guys would like to see the previous episodes that I've recorded, you can see them down in the playlist in the description below. If you guys enjoyed this series and would like to support the channel, you guys can like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the community Discord server, or check out my Twitter/X account and my TikTok account, both linked in the description below. That's all for this video, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.
Coming in so delicious like them ice cream.